Hi, my rays of light. This is Psychic Medium Raymond Guzman, and today I'm going to be doing a psychic slash mediumship reading on Amelia Earhart. For those of you that have, requested this video, there's a lot of mystery. For those of you that don't know who she is, she was one of the first female pilots that to fly a plane transcontinental, through the U.S. and around the world. She was just someone that was very much like a pioneer of her time, being again in the time where females did not have equal rights and opportunities. She was someone that fought for that. She was also an author, and so today I'm gonna go ahead and give you the insight of what I get from her. Immediately when I tune into Amelia and her energy, what I get is that she is not alive right now. Of course, I do feel like she has passed on from spirit. That's what I'm getting from her soul and from spirit, my spirit guides and angels. But I do feel like she's on the other side already. I do feel that she was um, very different. Her soul here on Earth had a lot of masculine energy, so I do feel like she tend to vibrate on the soul level at a very masculine uh, vibration. I also suspect that even though she did get married, like a lot of people did back then, with people, they did keep their sexuality in. Um, they use marriages to keep their sexuality or their sexual preference almost like hidden from people, because back then, being lesbian, gay, or transgender was not something that was very common. Um, it wasn't very accepted at all back then. And so I do feel like there was some energy that she kind of held off, which explains the reason why she never really had kids, being married to her husband, which I'll get to that in a moment. But I do feel like she was hiding a lot of her sexuality too, because when I tune into her, I do feel like she has uh, both. We all have a duality of feminine and masculine sides, but her energy tends to gravitate a lot more to the masculine side, which explains why she would have, stepped into kind of like what is deemed as the man's world back then, of flying an airplane, which most females, like I said, at that time were not doing that. And, I feel like in her mind also, on a psychological level, there was a lot of things that she would have endured in her childhood and even into adulthood. Um, and again, not being entirely happy in her marriage, in her relationship. It wasn't the picture perfect. So let me get into the next slide here. This is her and George P. Putnam. That is her husband. Now, he was married previously to another woman, and after Amelia's disappearance, he married 2 years later, I believe, after that with another woman, and he's had children. He had children from a previous marriage as well before Amelia. So he was married about 4 times. Uh, Amelia and George, well, George was, but as I look at both of them, their marriage wasn't picture perfect. Again, if you look at her features and you look at her, her structure, um, very beautiful woman, but I feel like she tend to, kind of be more on the masculine side. And again, in this marriage, she would have been the one wearing the pants, so to speak, in many ways. I do feel like this relationship was not really like a solid, loving type of relationship. Whatever relationship they did have, it was more for appearances, and that's what I keep getting. And I feel like this is something that, a lot of couples that were celebrities or people in Hollywood, even in the past, all these marriages, you would see them and they're kind of like arranged or like business proposals in many ways. But I don't feel like there was really like a lot of true love. There was a lot of things that he wanted to try to change in Amelia, for the appearances and stuff, more of a polished look in the way that she would dress, but she wasn't having it. In her mind, and she was a man in her mind. That's what I kind of get from her. So, it was very difficult for him to kind of want that, very feminine, refined female, to be at his side. and to give him children. And I feel like that was something that Amelia was not going to do. And again, I feel like there was some kind of abuse that maybe she didn't speak of in her childhood. This could have been molestation or even sexual abuse, but I do see that in her energy signature, in her soul, is what I'm getting. So again, this kind of molded her to be more, to step more into a man's world in her job and what she was doing, flying across and the seas and the world, and just being someone to make a name for herself. And she did. And she was well respected by Hoover and a lot of the government, etc. They saw her as someone, being very powerful in her own, standing in her own power. But at the same time, you have to understand that females at that time were not really given a platform to have a voice. There was a lot of women's. Oh, I also forgot to mention she was involved, I believe, in some women's movement as well. So she was, with organizations that kind of strived for the equality of women. But again, what I'm going back to, and this is the premise of the whole reading, really and truly is like the theme of the whole reading, is that this was a woman that lived in a time period in the early 1900s where women were not really accepted to have any kind of power or rights. And so when you are kind of putting yourself into that world of what is deemed to be a man's world, back then, of course, I know that sounds very sexist and very misogynistic, but I'm just using that in context to explain my message and get it across to y'all. I do feel in many ways that she was kind of used by the government and used by these powerful organizations to, yes, to give her a little bit of power and whatnot, but then to eventually silence her voice. So there was a lot of people that were not really happy, a lot of men, I should say, that were not very happy with Amelia because, again, she was someone that was a female. She was stepping into a man's world, and she was giving women a platform, showing them basically all the generations that a woman can do anything that a man can do, and I feel like that's, even today, a lot of women are stepping into the military. They're serving our country in the military. A lot of females, a lot of women are stepping into the police force, and they're doing things that, and a lot of women are even playing sports like football and things that we wouldn't have seen, if it wouldn't have been like for Amelia. I'm not saying that she's like the first one to do it, but, she used her platform to kind of show women and females and empower them in this time period and this era that it's possible to do anything that a man can do. But the problem with that is that there was a lot of lower vibrations, and even though she came into this world with a specific role to elevate consciousness and to kind of also show freedom to women, and empower them to be free and to step into their own power, again, it wasn't something that a lot of men really would have liked to see a female have this kind of control or power over other females and men too, because there was a lot of men that were supporting Amelia, and they really stood forth with what she, her movement and her cause and what she was trying to prove and what she was trying to do. But their marriage, like I said, going back to George and Amelia, it wasn't picture perfect. I do feel like on him, he was someone that was very codependent in these relationships, even if it wasn't like consolidated. But again, the body language, the chemistry in this photo, the energy is that, she's the one that is basically in control of the relationship. He, if you look at also, she's also more, I don't know. It's just, this is what I get on a psychic level and a mediumship level. The energy when I'm reading the auras, even though it's a black and white photo, I can still see the auras and the energy. She was someone that is very much, I want to say she was very much someone that was in between like a purple aura and also a green aura, and he had more of a, I want to say like a yellow aura. He was very creative, which would explain why he was like into writing and all that kind of stuff. But I also feel like he had a lot of blue aura. And so these two were not really very compatible. I don't feel like they're energetically, they were very compatible. when it gets into their marriage and the whole thing about it. Um, and at some point, I feel like he didn't like to be the shadow of Amelia, being that she was more popular than him, well known, and she was traveling, and he wasn't really, he was just known as Amelia's husband. That's something that is like a blow to an ego, for a man. Not every man would feel that way. If you're a secure man living in today's world, you wouldn't feel, you'd be, if you are vibrating at your highest authenticity, and you're not going to feel threatened, by your wife or your partner, being successful. But a lot of times back then, this is the case. Obviously, that was the case. So let me get into the next slide here. Now, this is Fred Noonan. He was like a captain, also a pilot, someone that accompanied Amelia on the Electra. I believe that was the name of the plane, when they were traveling, doing this flight, her second world flight towards the Howland, was it the Howland Islands? Um, but I feel like there's something weird here when I tune into these energies. Like I said, even though she may have been bisexual, or let's say, had some, maybe like a lesbian, I don't know. That's the energy that's coming across. I feel like there was really some kind of chemistry here between Fred and Amelia. So I don't know if they had like a mini affair that was kept secret, and I hate to even say that because they were both married at the time. I don't know. I just keep getting that there was something about these two, that their energy, Fred, when I get into his energy and his soul, I feel like he had a lot of vices and dependencies, someone that wasn't very, very stable. So getting onto this flight, I don't feel like he was in the best mentality. And Amelia was prepared, but when I get into it, I am being shown some kind of argument or discussion leading into the flight and into the plane. There's been a lot of conspiracy theories whether or not Amelia was on the plane or someone else was on the plane, and maybe they recorded her voice. There's been a lot of conspiracy theories of what happened, but apparently a few miles away from getting to the island, there was a lot of interference with the radio systems, and signal wasn't getting across. And eventually, the U.S. claims that, and a lot of people claim that they don't know what happened. They believe that the plane that they were in crashed, and that they were both either drowned, or they died during the crash. And the thing is that they never found the bodies, and they never found any parts of the plane. And they searched the ocean, but you have to understand this was the 1900s, in the early 1900s, and really and truly the technology back then, even if they had like sonograms, or not sonograms, but radar and other kind of technology, whatever they use to kind of pick up signals, and radio waves of stuff in the ocean floor, or the sea, whatever. It's not up to date like it is now, where we have stronger satellites and things like that, to pick up signal. But this is what I get, and again, some of you may not, agree. You may have your own theories, etc. I am getting that the government had something to do with this at that time. This was a collaborated, how would I say this? This was two large entities that were definitely conspiring, or two very powerful organizations, that's what I'm going to say, that were conspiring against Amelia to take her out. This was murder. I'm just saying it. I feel like this was definitely murder to take her out. But at the same time, I do feel like her soul was already prepared for this. Now, some people say that the Japanese took Amelia and Fred after the plane crashed. And some say that the plane didn't crash, and it actually made it towards those islands, and the Japanese captured them. And then they tore the plane apart and took Amelia and Fred into custody, or into that. I feel, and what I see is that actually, and again, like I said, y'all may not agree, I feel like both of these two were killed. They were murdered. And I feel that whoever did it, if it was the Japanese, it's very possible. I will say that. But they were not doing it by themselves. There was two powerful organizations involved in this to take Amelia Earhart out. And this was like the ultimate price that she had to pay. This was the ultimate sacrifice. This was the ultimate way of getting vindication for people that didn't like her. Men, I should say, that didn't like the fact that she was a female making a platform for other females and giving them power to realize their dreams and to dream big and to solidify that the idea that a female can do anything that a man can in a man's world. And even though I know that sounds misogynistic, it sounds, sexist. The reason that I'm saying it in that manner is because that's the way that men back then were, how they would see women and how they would, treat women. And that's what I feel like is what caused her. But this is not a man's world. This is a woman's world that we're living in today. And I do feel, and I'm very proud that we are having a lot of females that are able to do things that men can do and show men that they can probably do it better than us. So I really, really love the idea and I love what Amelia stood for. But I do feel that they were both killed. If the plane did crash, which I feel like it did crash, I get that these two were dragged and there was definitely a fighting for survival, but they were killed. They were murdered. And I feel this was gunshots. These were gunshots and they were both eliminated. And the bodies were then disposed of, burned, cremated. So no one would ever find their bodies. No one would ever find their bodies. There was another theory that Amelia survived and that she came to the U.S. and assumed the identity of another lady, which is bogus. I'm going to say that's bogus. But someone that, whoever did the murder, which was possibly, it could have been the Japanese, they were paid a good amount of money, because what I'm being shown is that there was money definitely paid out to the people that were that carried out this whole thing, that carried it out. As far as the plane is concerned, the Japanese were much more advanced than what the US thinks they were back then, and they had a lot of technology. Somehow or some way that plane was recovered is what I'm getting. And somehow or some way there's something underground that I'm being shown where this plane would be in, and then it would have of course been dismantled. But there was something, and it's not in the ocean, but actually on the island itself, that would have had something that goes down into the ground. So I feel like there's something that I keep being shown, something going down, and not the plane going down, but like under the ground. Like there's something going down under the ground, and it would be like a underground facility. For at this time, in the 1900s, that's something that wasn't really spoken of. But again, you have to understand that the Japanese have a lot of secret, places. It's just like the U.S. does. The U.S. has, and the government, they have a lot of, areas throughout the United States that are underground, and that definitely have, facilities underground. These are like laboratories. These are like high class classified information, etc. So again, this is something that would have been happened, but they were paid. Whoever took out Fred and Amelia, they were paid to do it, because they did not want them to come back from that flight. And it would have been, if she would have come back from the flight, would she have stopped flying? No. And I feel like she would have even gotten into more popularity and stuff. So it was easier to eliminate her than to keep, her power going, as far as like being successful and things like that. I also feel like the plane was sabotaged prior to taking off. There was definitely something not working right, in the actual system of the plane. This could have been in the motor, something in like that. So there was definitely some issues with the plane that caused it to crash after a certain altitude, certain amount of miles, um, into the flight, or hours into the flight. But again, there was a lot of foul play in this whole thing. It was murder, and again, two large powers at B, and one power being paid completely to eliminate Amelia. And that is what I get. And so I don't feel like her soul really knew, but in some ways her soul did know, because, and I say this because, like I said, a lot of people know sometimes when they're going to die, before they die, they'll start acting weird, or they start doing things. And a lot of these prolific, or these pioneers that were innovative, like her and other people, they will tend to leave a mark in the world and a presence like she did. She impacted a lot of females, a lot of female pilots that are in existence right now. In her presence is always going to be there. It's like leaving your legacy behind in many ways. And that's what she came to the world to do, was to show women and empower men as well, to see women in a different light, and to wake up men to see that females are able to do what they can do in a time when they were told that that was not possible. She made it possible. So yeah, this is what I get around this whole Amelia Earhart situation. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And if you would like to book your own private psychic reading with me, you can go to my website. It's www.raymondguzman.net/shop. Blessings and love and light. Have an amazing, amazing day.